Hello, good evening, and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Appeal, and here are news-making headlines beyond the continent. We begin in the news today in Europe with the BRICS Summit, where Russia President Vladimir Putin says he wants to advance ties with China. Vladimir Putin disclosed this to his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping during a meeting at the BRICS Summit in Kazan. According to Putin, Russia-Chinese cooperation in world affairs acts as one of the main stabilizing factors in the global arena, adding that Russia intends to further increase coordination in all multilateral platforms to ensure global security and a just world order.
Российско-китайское сотрудничество в мировых делах выступает одним из главных стабилизирующих факторов на мировой арене. Мы намерены и далее наращивать координацию на всех многосторонних площадках в целях обеспечения глобальной безопасности и справедливого миропорядка.
India Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called for the Ukraine conflict to be resolved peacefully and swiftly during his meeting with President Vladimir Putin at the BRICS Summit in Russia on Tuesday. The three-day summit held under tight security in the city of Kazan is the largest international event in Russia since the Ukraine conflict began in 2022, with Putin aiming to build an alliance to challenge Western hegemony.
एक्सेलेंसी, रूस और यूक्रेन के बीच चल रहे संघर्ष के विषय पर हम लगातार संपर्क में रहे हैं। जैसा मैंने पहले भी कहा है, हमारा मानना है कि समस्याओं का समाधान शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से ही होना चाहिए। शांति और स्थिरता की जल्द से जल्द बहाली का हम पूरी तरह समर्थन करते हैं। हमारे सभी प्रयास मानवता को प्रमुखता देते हैं। आने वाले समय में भी भारत हर संभव सहयोग देने।
Meanwhile, North Korea has denied sending troops to support Russia in Ukraine. The very first response from the state since Seoul made the assertion. According to Seoul's spy agency on Friday, North Korea has decided to send a large-scale troop deployment to back Moscow's conflict in Ukraine, with 1,500 special soldiers already training in Russia's Far East.
As for the so-called military cooperation with Russia, my delegation does not feel any need for a comment on such groundless stereotype rumors aimed at smearing the image of the DPRK and undermining the legitimate friendly and cooperative relations between sovereign states. The assertion of those member states on the so-called arms transfer between sovereign states is totally incompatible with this thematic debate.
Away from that, the UK on Tuesday began the early release of a second tranche of 1,000 prisoners, causing embarrassment for the government as convicts were seen being collected in luxury cars. In order to address the prison problem, British Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood announced the early release of a second batch of inmates, as well as a review of sentencing that includes alternatives for harsher non-custodial penalties. A spokesman for Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he shared the public's anger at such scenes, but that there was no choice not to act due to serious prison overcrowding.
Today, the second tranche of emergency releases takes place, creating desperately needed space within our prisons. But this is not the long-term solution. So I will, Deputy Speaker, if we are to address our prisons crisis, we must be smarter about who receives a prison sentence. Now, let me be clear. There will always be a place for prison, and there will always be offenders who must be locked up. But we must also expand the range of punishments that we use outside of prison and consider how we punish those offenders who have broken our rules but are not a danger to society. For that reason, I am today launching a review of sentencing, and it will have one clear goal: to ensure that we are never again in a position where we have more prisoners than we have space in our prisons.
The former CEO of fashion giant Abercrombie and Fitch and his British partner have been arrested and are facing sex trafficking charges. Mike Jeffries, his partner Matthew Smith, and the couple's alleged middleman were arrested on Tuesday morning. The indictment, which contains more than a dozen counts, alleges that between December 2008 and March 2015, Jeffries and two other associates engaged in a sex trafficking scheme in which they would recruit men with model aspirations. The FBI and prosecutor's office are expected to announce more details at a press conference shortly. Now let's go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll tell you election race enters final fortnight. So join us then. Welcome back. Now in North America, former U.S. President Donald Trump has called on Christians across the nation to stand up and protect their religious freedom and free speech, warning that both could be at risk if Vice President Kamala Harris is elected. Speaking at the 11th Hour Family Leaders meeting in North Carolina, Trump urged attendees to vote, saying they are not going to have the life they should have, a life of prosperity, hope, and beauty, if they do not take action. His remarks come as he continues to rally support ahead of the upcoming elections, stressing the importance of faith-based values in shaping the country's future.
Voting for these people are a nightmare. I don't know what they have against Catholics, but Catholics are treated worse than anybody. So, and by the way, evangelicals are next. You can bet on it. So Christians, get everyone you know and vote. You have to vote, or we're not going to have the life that we should have, a life of prosperity and hope, a life of beauty.
Vice President Kamala Harris toured swing states with the Republican former Congresswoman Liz Cheney as she continues to court conservative voters and disaffected Republicans. Former President Donald Trump, meanwhile, visited hurricane-damaged North Carolina and spoke at a faith leaders meeting where he told Christian voters to stand up and save their country. The News Central international correspondent Afia Hagen has more.
One of the tightest election races of modern times enters its final two-week stretch, with Republican Donald Trump making a special pitch to Latino voters as Democratic rival Kamala Harris campaigns with Republican Liz Cheney. With just 2 weeks until Election Day, Donald Trump doubled down on his sharp attacks against his Democratic rival.
She's a mess. She's a cognitive mess, and nobody wants to talk about it. And we can't have 4 more years. We had 4 years of it. We can't take another 4 years of it, can we? No one respects her. No one trusts her. No one takes her seriously. Something is clearly wrong with her. She can't put 2 sentences together. Kamala Harris does not have the compassion, the smarts, or the strength to be the President of the United States. She just can't do the job. You know it. Everybody knows it.
Elsewhere, Vice President Kamala Harris campaigned with the former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney in the swing state of Michigan. Harris said that if Trump wins this election, Ukraine will have to surrender to Russia.
He would surrender. He would have Ukraine surrender its fight against an aggressor, violating its sovereignty. If Donald Trump were president, Vladimir Putin will be sitting in Kyiv.
Both campaigns are pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into a final push for any wavering, undecided voters who could tilt the balance in their favor, with polls consistently showing their candidates in a dead heat ahead of Election Day. Vice President Harris, who only threw herself into the race in July when President Joe Biden made the stunning decision to drop out and endorse her instead, will give a television interview to NBC today. Trump, whose anti-migrant rhetoric is becoming coarser and more extreme by the day, Harris has sought to frame herself as a joyful warrior, seeking to turn the page on Trump's years of outrage and move into a new generation of American political leadership. More than 15 million Americans have already voted by mail or in person, according to the independent organization Elections Project, representing about 10% of the total turnout in 2020. Whatever the outcome, Americans will make history on November 5th. They will either elect the first woman president in the world's leading superpower, or they will put the first convicted felon into the White House. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagen.
And now for more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Now, we're into the last couple of weeks of the campaigning, and we're seeing this going to many lines, especially for Trump religious. So what's the latest from the campaign trail?
Well, the campaign trail is getting frenetic, to say the least, and these last 2 weeks are so very important. So today on the campaign trail, it's all about those swing states. So those are the states where the votes kind of count the most, if you will, and they are the ones that we have to be on to the path to victory. Getting those states will almost certainly get you into the White House. So today we have former President Barack Obama out in force for Kamala Harris. He's going to be in 2 Democratic strongholds. He's going to be in Wisconsin and he's going to be in Detroit. Tim Walz is going to be with him while he's in Detroit, and Obama is going to be introduced by Eminem. Now, he is someone who never really gives his thoughts on politics or campaigns or anything. So this is a really, really rare appearance for him. So you've got Eminem introducing Barack Obama today in Detroit. And it's this kind of star power that the campaigns need. We've seen Elon Musk out campaigning for Trump, offering $1 million for people who will sign up to his campaign. And Trump is going to be on the road as well. He's going to be visiting some swing states too, and we'll have some proxies with him to support. We can expect to see Elon Musk back out on the road with him as well.
It has a very interesting one with the celebrities being brought out now, especially for Eminem. It is Detroit anyway. But the candidates are also going after the Latino vote. So tell us how they're both trying to achieve this.
Yeah, in the past, the Democrats especially have been accused of taking the Latino and the Black vote for granted. And so what you've seen in the past couple of days is both campaigns out courting the Latino vote. So Trump sat with a round table yesterday. You've got Kamala Harris out speaking to Latino voters today, and they will be doing that over the course of the week. And what you can see from here is that every single vote counts. And actually, it's trying to get these fringe people, these fringe voters, and particularly Latino men, seem to really sort of side with Trump. And so Kamala Harris is doing everything she can to try and nail down Latino men, Black men as well, to try and secure their votes. And you've got the Trump campaign doing the same thing, you know, going out to a lot of these same voters, speaking to a lot of the same people, and trying to secure their votes as well. And that's a real testament to how tight this race is, that literally every single vote counts. And so over the course of this week, you are going to see definitely more of both sides of the campaign courting Latino voters and trying to secure their vote.
Okay, so yesterday you brought us the polls. It was a 0.2 lead for Harris. What is it today?
Yeah, looking at the poll of polls today, it seems to be a 1.9 percentage point lead, so 0.1 of a percentage. Like I said, this is a super tight race, well within the margins of error. So at the moment, you have Harris on 48.2% and you have Trump on 46.3%. That is a difference of only 1.92%. And that is a poll of all the polls. So every single poll that is done, that is the average of it that is taken. So like we said, it is a very, very tight race, and it is well within the margin of error.
Well, thank you very much, Afia, for bringing us the details once again tonight. Thank you. Meanwhile, in South America, a court in Peru has sentenced former President Alejandro Toledo to 20 years and 6 months in prison for corruption and money laundering. Prosecutors say he accepted $35 million in bribes from a Brazilian construction company that was awarded a contract to build a road in southern Peru. The 78-year-old Toledo, who was in office between 2001 and 2006, was arrested 5 years ago in California, where he had lived and worked for many years, and was extradited to Peru last year. The Brazilian company, Odebrecht, admitted to paying millions of dollars to bribes, or rather in bribes, to officials across Latin America and the United States to secure government contracts.
Fallamos condenando a Alejandro Toledo Manrique como autor del delito contra la administración pública en la modalidad de colusión previsto y sancionado en el artículo 384 del Código Penal. En calidad de autor del delito de lavado de activos, delito previsto y sancionado en el artículo 1 de la Ley 27.765, en agravio del Estado. En suma, se le impone 20 años de pena privativa de libertad, 20 años 6 meses de pena privativa de libertad, la misma que será computada a partir del 23 de...
Now let's go on a short break. Please do stay with us when we get back. More. You're welcome back. To the Middle East now, where we understand that the Lebanese armed group Hezbollah has claimed responsibility for a drone attack last week on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's holiday residence in Caesarea in northern Israel. Hezbollah spokesman Mohammed Afif made the remarks during a press conference in Beirut's southern suburb that was cut short following an Israeli evacuation warning for the area. He also said there would be no negotiations with Israel while fighting continues, and acknowledged that some Hezbollah fighters have been taken captive by the Israeli military.
المقاومة الإسلامية عن مسؤوليتها الكاملة والتامة والحصرية عن عملية قيصاريا واستهداف منزل مجرم الحرب وزعيم الفاشية الصهيونية نتنياهو.
And now, sports. Poland's Iga Swiatek will play in the Billie Jean King Cup finals in Malaga in November, where they face host Spain in the opening match. Swiatek has not played since her U.S. Open quarterfinals defeat by Jessica Pegula in September, and after missing the WTA Tour's Asian swing due to fatigue, the 23-year-old lost her #1 position to Belarusian Aryna Sabalenka. Swiatek, who added Wim Fitch to her coaching team, will also take part in November's WTA finals in Riyadh, giving her a chance to reclaim top spot in the world rankings. And Serie A giants Inter Milan and AC Milan are set to launch another joint bid to build a new stadium together near the iconic San Siro. Mayor of Milan Giuseppe Sala and a delegation from both Inter and Milan met with Italy's culture and sports ministers to discuss the idea of building a new stadium in the San Siro district and developing the surrounding area. The city of Milan said that all parties were satisfied after a meeting, and the clubs will begin the lengthy official procedures necessary to get the project completed. Tuesday's announcement is the latest episode in a long-running saga surrounding the San Siro, which was first opened in 1926 and has since been renovated several times, most famously for the 1990s World Cup. In 2026, San Siro will host the opening ceremony of the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics. And that's all on Beyond the Continent this evening. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.